Doc on the Run. We help injured runners run.
Strict rest puts you at higher risk of another overtraining injury. I realize I've probably beaten this one to death in earlier podcast episodes, but just to retouch on this, you need to understand several things happen when you've become immobilized in a fracture walking boot or you've been condemned to a sentence of several weeks on crutches. Number one, your bones get weaker because you're not applying force. Doctors call this disuse osteopenia. You actually lose bone density and the bones get weaker. Number two, your foot and ankle becomes stiffer as little strands of collagen or scar tissue start forming around all of those tendons and joints that aren't moving. Number three, your muscles become weaker because you're not using them. Muscle atrophy may not only be temporary. If severe enough, it can become permanent. Number four, your neuromuscular connections start fading away. All of the coordination of movement, the intensified coordinated instructions when your brain tells your foot and ankle to move, it all starts to diminish when you become immobilized. If you're not using the muscle groups, they don't continue to fire in unison. You become uncoordinated. And it takes a long time to rebuild all those neuromuscular connections once you've shut them off with a cast or a fracture walking boot. Number five, your aerobic fitness vanishes. This problem is pretty obvious. If you sit on the couch for 6 weeks, your aerobic fitness is going to suffer. So we don't need to really talk about this one. The very worst part of this equation is all of these things together add up to increased risk of future injury. So if you're a runner, it seems all the more important to hound your doctor and get her to help you identify ways to stay active. You need to fight for your fitness when you're injured. Given all the obvious benefits of physical activity when you're recovering from an injury, it just makes sense that it's worth putting all the effort, thought, and creativity into developing a plan of activity that will support and facilitate your recovery while permitting healing to take place. The goal of developing this sort of active recovery plan is to make sure that you choose the appropriate exercise and appropriate amounts of exercise. All of this, of course, can be aligned with appropriate nutrition and periods of rejuvenating rest.
Doc on the Run. We help injured runners run.